Three children disappeared at Denver International Airport in under 20 minutes. No screams, no witnesses, just gone. The blizzard hit at 9:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve like the hand of something ancient and furious. And by the time anyone noticed, it was already too late. Wind speeds clocked at 70 miles per hour. Temperature dropped to negative 15 degrees Fahrenheit in less than 20 minutes. Snow fell so thick it erased the runway lights, the terminal windows, the entire world beyond a wall of white chaos that swallowed everything it touched. And somewhere in Terminal B, a security officer's German Shepherd was about to detect what 2,000 humans had missed. Inside Denver International Airport, 2,314 people became prisoners. Ethan Cole stood in the Terminal B watching the last flicker of overhead lights dim and resurrect in sickly yellow emergency glow. The backup generators coughed to life somewhere deep in the building's mechanical heart. Half the terminal went dark. The other half glowed dim like a dying campfire. He was 35 years old, 6'2", broad shoulders that still carried the muscle memory of 20-pound rucksacks and body armor. His face showed lines carved by wind and sand and sleepless nights in places most Americans couldn't find on a map. Dark hair cut short, gray eyes that never stopped scanning. 3 years ago, he wore the trident of a Navy SEAL. Now he wore a blue security jacket with a laminated badge that read Cole, E. Shadow sat beside him, 90 pounds of German Shepherd with a coat like black smoke and eyes that missed nothing. The dog's ears were up, swiveling like radar dishes, tracking sounds through the chaos of stranded travelers. His tail stayed low. His body language spoke a language Ethan had learned to read better than English. Something's wrong, the dog's posture said. Something's coming. Ethan placed a hand on Shadow's head. The fur was warm and familiar. The dog leaned into the touch for exactly 2 seconds, then returned to his vigilance. They had been partners for 4 years. Before that, Shadow served 2 deployments in Afghanistan with a Marine handler who came home in a flag-draped box. The dog spent 6 months in a kennel, too traumatized to work, too loyal to forget. Ethan found him at a rehabilitation center in Colorado Springs. 2 broken soldiers recognizing each other across a chain-link fence. The airport radio crackled on Ethan's belt. Dispatch came through in bursts of static. All units, Highway 70 closed, 270 impassable. Emergency services can't reach airport perimeter. Repeat, you are isolated, ETA for relief 12 to 14 hours. Maintain order. Protect civilians. Do not let anyone leave the building. Ethan keyed the mic. Copy that. Terminal B secured. He looked at the crowd, families huddled on the floor with suitcases as makeshift beds, children crying, adults arguing with gate agents who had no answers to give. An elderly couple sat holding hands near a darkened Hudson News, their faces pale with exhaustion. A young mother tried to nurse her baby while 2 older kids clung to her legs. The heating system struggled. Breath formed small clouds in the air. People pulled on coats and wrapped themselves in airline blankets that did nothing against the cold seeping through the walls. Shadow's ears pinned back. A low rumble started in his chest. Ethan followed the dog's gaze. Nothing obvious. Just stranded people doing stranded people things. But Shadow didn't make mistakes. If he sensed danger, danger existed. Ethan's hand moved instinctively to his belt. No sidearm. Security at Denver International didn't carry firearm. Pepper spray, flashlight, radio, plastic handcuffs. Not much use against real threats. But his body remembered other tools. His hands knew how to break bones, how to find pressure points, how to turn a human body into a non-threat in under 4 seconds. You don't forget those things. The Marine Corps drills them into your DNA. The SEALs refine them until they're second nature. He forced himself to breathe, to stay calm. Shadow fed off his energy. If Ethan stayed steady, the dog stayed steady. 3 years ago, Ethan's world ended on a road 40 miles outside Denver. Christmas Eve. Same date as tonight. Same snow, same cold. He was driving home from his shift at the airport. His wife Sarah sat in the passenger seat. 8-year-old Lily slept in the back, her small face pressed against the window, dreaming whatever children dream about on Christmas Eve. The roads were bad, black ice, low visibility, but they were almost home, just 10 more miles. Sarah was talking about Lily's presents hidden in the garage, how excited their daughter would be in the morning, how this would be the best Christmas yet. Then the truck in front of them hit the brakes, red lights blooming in the snow. Ethan swerved. The wheels lost traction. The car spun once, twice, and slid sideways off the road and down a steep embankment. Trees rushed up to meet them. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The airbag hit Ethan's face like a fist. When he came into the car, was on its side. Sarah wasn't moving. Blood ran from her temple. Lily's car seat hung at an angle empty. The back door was open. Ethan screamed his daughter's name until his throat tore. Search and rescue found him 4 hours later. They found Sarah's body. They never found Lily. Not her jacket, not her shoes, not a single trace. The official report said she must have been thrown from the vehicle during the crash. The river below the embankment ran fast that time of year. They searched for 3 weeks. Nothing. Ethan buried his wife. He buried an empty casket for his daughter. And he buried the part of himself that believed in things like hope or mercy or justice. 6 months later, Shadow came into his life. The dog became the only thing tethering him to a world he no longer wanted to live in. Shadow barked once. Sharp. Definitive. Ethan snapped back to the present. The dog was staring at the far corner of Terminal B, past the shuttered Starbucks, past the rows of plastic seats bolted to the floor. A group of 4 people sat in the shadows where the emergency lights barely reached. A woman, 3 children. Ethan started walking. Shadow moved beside him, silent as smoke. As they approached, details emerged. The woman wore a bright blue coat, expensive, looking out of place among the budget travelers and stranded families. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her face showed tension around the mouth and eyes. She sat ramrod straight, not relaxed, not exhausted like everyone else. Alert, watching. The children sat in a row beside her. A girl maybe 7 years old with brown hair and pale skin. 2 boys younger, 5 and 6 if Ethan had to guess. They didn't fidget, didn't play, didn't speak. They sat like little statues, hands folded in their laps, staring at nothing. Something about the scene tripped every alarm Ethan's training had installed in his brain. Shadow's hackles rose. The fur along his spine stood up in a ridge like the teeth of a saw. His lips pulled back, just slightly, showing the edge of white teeth. Not aggression, warning. The woman noticed them approaching. Her eyes widened for a fraction of a second, then smoothed into a polite smile. Too polite, too practiced. "Evening, officer," she said. Her voice carried a faint tremor she tried to hide. "Everything all right?" Ethan stopped 10 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to react if needed. Shadow positioned himself slightly ahead, a living barrier between Ethan and the group. "Just checking on everyone," Ethan said. His voice came out flat, professional. "Making sure people stay warm, stay safe." "We're fine," the woman said quickly. "Just waiting for the storm to pass." Ethan's eyes moved to the children. The girl wore a light spring jacket, thin and inadequate for Colorado winter. One of the boys had on a heavy coat 3 sizes too big for him. The youngest boy wore only a hoodie with a cartoon character on the front, no winter gear at all. Their shoes didn't match. Different size, different conditions of wear. No family traveling together dressed their kids like that. Not in December, not in Denver. Shadow took a step closer to the group. His nose lifted, testing the air, the way a wolf tests the wind for predator or prey. The girl's eyes flicked to the dog, then to Ethan, then back down to her lap. But in that brief moment of eye contact, Ethan saw something that made his chest tighten. Fear, deep and desperate fear. "Your children?" Ethan asked. The woman's smile tightened. "Yes, we've had a long day. Flight delays. You know how it is." Ethan nodded slowly. I need to see your boarding passes. Just routine. Of course. The woman reached into her purse. Her hands moved too fast, too nervous. She pulled out a folder and handed it over. Ethan scanned the documents. 3 boarding passes, 3 names, Anderson, Sophie, Anderson, Liam, Anderson, Noah. Destination Seattle. Departure time 7 p.m., 4 hours ago before the storm hit. He looked at the woman's driver's license. Morgan, Rebecca. Address in Phoenix. Different last name, foster care, Rebecca said before he could ask. I'm transporting them to their new family in Seattle. Ethan handed the documents back. Shadow hadn't moved. The dog's attention stayed locked on the children, specifically on the little girl. His body language screamed alert, but not the kind of alert that meant drugs or explosives. This was different. This was human fear, human distress. The girl shifted slightly. Her small hand moved just an inch toward Shadow, then stopped, pulled back, like she wanted to reach out but didn't dare. Ethan crouched down to the children's level. His knees protested old injuries from parachute jumps and hard landings. Shadow moved with him, staying close. Hey there, Ethan said gently. You kids doing okay? Staying warm. The boy said nothing. The girl's lips parted as if to speak, then closed again. She glanced at Rebecca. The woman's smile never wavered, but her eyes sent a message clear as a gunshot. Don't say anything. Ethan stood. Noted the way the children flinched when Rebecca shifted in her seat. Noted the way they sat too still, too obedient. Noted the bruise on the youngest boy's wrist, barely visible under his sleeve. Stay warm, Ethan said. He tapped his radio. Help is coming in the morning. He walked away. Shadow followed. But the dog kept looking back, kept watching the group like he was memorizing their faces. 20 feet away, Ethan stopped, pulled out his radio, keyed the mic. Dispatch, this is Cole. Need you to run a check for me. Go ahead. 3 names. Anderson, Sophie, age 7. Anderson, Liam, age 6. Anderson, Noah, age 5. Flying to Seattle, foster care transport. Just want to verify everything's legitimate. Copy. Stand by. Ethan waited, watched the group from a distance. Rebecca wasn't looking at her phone, wasn't reading a magazine. She was watching the terminal exits. Every few seconds, her eyes would track to the doors, the walkways, the bathroom entrances. Calculating. Planning. Shadow whined, a sound so quiet only Ethan could hear it. The dog's tail stayed low. His ears kept swiveling between the group and Ethan as if asking, when are we going to do something? The radio crackled. Cole dispatch. Got something weird here. Talk to me. Foster care system shows no transports scheduled tonight. No record of those names in Colorado or Arizona databases. You want me to dig deeper? Ethan's heart rate kicked up. Keep digging. I need verification within 10 minutes. Copy that. He started walking back toward the group. Shadow matched his pace, body tense like a compressed spring. Rebecca saw them coming. Her face went pale. She stood up quickly, grabbing her purse. We're going to find a restroom, she announced to no one in particular. Come on, kids. The children stood, mechanical, obedient. The little girl moved last, slower than the others. As she turned, her hand dropped to her side. Her fingers made a small gesture. 3 taps against her leg. Rhythmic, deliberate. Then she did something that stopped Ethan's breath. She looked directly at Shadow, made eye contact with the dog. And as Rebecca started walking toward the bathrooms, the girl reached out her small hand, moved it toward Shadow's head. 3 gentle taps, soft as snowfall, right on top of the German shepherd's skull. Shadow froze. Every muscle in his body went rigid. His ears shot forward. A low rumble built in his chest, not a growl, a recognition, a response. Ethan's mind flashed to his training, to the signals handlers use with military working dogs, to the coded touches that meant danger, help, enemy nearby. 3 taps to the head. Universal K9 distress signal. used by handlers in combat zones when voice commands would give away position. Only someone trained with police or military dogs would know that signal. Only a child raised around K9 units would think to use it. The girl pulled her hand back quickly, looked down, kept walking, but Shadow wheeled around, positioning himself between the girl and Rebecca, blocked their path. 80 pounds of protective instinct made flesh. Rebecca stopped, her breathing quickened. "That dog needs to move," she said. Her voice cracked. Ethan stepped forward. "Shadow, stay." The dog didn't budge. His eyes locked on Rebecca. His body language shifted from alert to defensive. Hackles fully raised now. Tail rigid, weight balanced on all four paws, ready to spring. "Ma'am," Ethan said quietly, "I need you to step away from the children." Rebecca's face went white. "Excuse me, step away, now. This is ridiculous. These are my—" "They're not yours," Ethan said. His voice dropped lower, harder. The voice he used to use when clearing buildings in Helmand Province, when facing down insurgents who thought they could lie their way out of a bad situation. "Shadow knows it, I know it, and I think you know that I know." Rebecca's hand dove into her purse. Shadow exploded forward, 90 pounds of trained aggression launching like a missile. He hit Rebecca, center mass jaws clamping onto her forearm before she could pull whatever she was reaching for. She screamed, went down hard, her purse scattered across the floor. A phone, a bottle of pills, and a small canister of pepper spray. Ethan was on her in 2 strides. Knee on her back, plastic cuffs from his belt around her wrists in 3 seconds flat. Shadow released her arm, stepped back, positioned himself between Rebecca and the children. The dog's chest heaved, his eyes stayed locked on the threat. The girl dropped to her knees, wrapped her small arms around Shadow's neck, started crying into his fur. Silent sobs that shook her whole body. The boys just stood there, frozen, unsure if they were being rescued or if something worse was coming. People were staring now, a crowd forming at a distance. Someone shouted something about calling security. Ethan ignored them all. He pulled Rebecca to her feet, pushed her into a nearby chair, kept one hand on her shoulder to hold her down. His radio crackled. "Cold dispatch. Got your information. Those kids, they're on missing persons lists. 3 separate reports filed in the last 2 hours. Different families, different gates. You've got 3 active abduction cases sitting right in front of you." The terminal seemed to tilt. Ethan looked at the children, really looked at them. 3 different kids, 3 different families, all taken within hours, all corralled by one woman who almost got them onto a plane before the storm trapped everyone inside. "Copy dispatch," Ethan said. His voice sounded far away, even to himself. "I need backup at Terminal B. I need Child Protective Services. And I need every security camera feed from the last 4 hours. Every gate, every corridor." "We're pulling it now. Jesus, Cole. How did you even spot this?" Ethan looked down at Shadow. The dog sat beside the little girl, letting her hold on to him, letting her cry. His tail gave one slow wag. A signal. "We did it. We found her." "I didn't," Ethan said into the radio. "My partner did." The next 20 minutes moved in a blur. 2 other security officers arrived. A TSA supervisor, an off-duty FBI agent who happened to be stranded with everyone else. Rebecca sat in silence, face blank, saying nothing. The children clustered together near Shadow, unwilling to leave the dog's side. Ethan pulled up the security footage on a terminal computer. Watched the recordings play back. There. Gate A, the little girl Sophie walking with an elderly couple. Gray-haired, tourist clothes. The man stopped to ask a gate agent a question. Sophie wandered 3 feet away to look at a vending machine. Rebecca appeared from nowhere, knelt beside the girl, spoke quickly, pointed toward the terminal. The girl looked confused but followed. 30 seconds. The couple turned around. Sophie was gone. Gate C, Liam standing with a tired-looking man in a business suit. The man set down his briefcase to tie his shoe. Rebecca moved in, took Liam's hand like she belonged there, walked away. The man stood up, looked around, didn't see the boy. Panic set in. By then, Rebecca and Liam were already out of frame. Gate D. Noah with a young woman, his mother probably. The woman went to the bathroom, told Noah to wait right there, don't move. Rebecca approached within 90 seconds, smiled, said something. Noah shook his head at first. Rebecca pulled out a phone, showed him something on the screen. His face changed from fear to confusion. He followed her. When his mother came back 3 minutes later, her son was gone. Professional, practiced, calculated. This wasn't Rebecca's first time. The FBI agent leaned over Ethan's shoulder watching the footage. "This is part of something bigger," he said quietly. "This is organized. You just stumbled into a trafficking operation." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "How many?" The agent shook his head. "No way to know. But if she's working an airport this efficiently, if she knows how to spot vulnerable kids' isolated moments gaps in supervision, this isn't her first rodeo. There could be dozens, could be hundreds." Ethan walked back to the children. Shadow raised his head, tail wagging once. The little girl, Sophie, looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "Are you a policeman?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Security officer," Ethan said. He crouched down to her level. "You're safe now, all three of you." "My grandparents," Sophie said. "They're looking for me. They must be so scared. We're going to find them, I promise." Liam spoke up. His voice shook. "My dad, he was right there. I turned around and he was just gone." "He didn't leave you," Ethan said gently. "You were taken. But we found you. You're going to see your families again." Noah, the youngest, reached out and touched Shadow's head. 3 taps, the same signal Sophie had used. "Where did you learn that?" Ethan asked. Sophie wiped her eyes. "My dad. He was a police officer. He had a K-9 partner. Before he died, he taught me things. How to be safe, how to ask for help if something bad happened. Smart dad. He said dogs don't lie. He said if I was ever in trouble and saw a police dog, I should do the signal. He said the dog would know. The dog would tell someone." Ethan felt something crack open in his chest, a grief he'd kept locked away for 3 years. "Your dad was right. Shadow knew. He told me." Sophie leaned against the dog. Shadow licked her hand. A gesture of comfort, of protection, of something beyond training or instinct. This was compassion. This was understanding. The radio crackled again. "Cold dispatch, we got the families. Gate, a couple named Carter. Gate C, man named Patterson. Gate D, woman named Brooks. All 3 filed missing persons reports. All 3 are being escorted to Terminal B now. ETA 5 minutes. Ethan stood, looked at the 3 children huddled around Shadow, looked at Rebecca sitting in custody, face empty of all emotion, looked at the blizzard still raging outside, the snow that had trapped everyone here, that had stopped a plane from taking off and carrying these kids into a nightmare they might never have escaped. Sometimes God works in strange ways. Sometimes a storm that strands thousands of people also saves 3 lives. The families arrived in a rush of tears and shouting and desperate embraces. The Carters, elderly and shaking, swept Sophie into their arms and held her like they'd never let go. Mr. Patterson, the businessman, dropped to his knees and clutched Liam, apologizing over and over for looking away. Miss Brooks, Noah's mother, sobbed so hard she could barely stand her son wrapped around her waist. Shadow sat beside Ethan, watching the reunions with calm dignity. His tail wagged slowly. His work was done. The FBI agent approached. "We need to interview the kids, get details, figure out who Rebecca Morgan really is and who she's working for." "Tomorrow," Ethan said. "Tonight they need their families." The agent nodded, looked at Shadow. "That's one hell of a dog you've got. Best partner I've ever had. Military Marines, Afghanistan. 2 deployments before I got him." Ethan didn't mention his own service. Didn't need to. The way he moved, the way he assessed threats, the way he'd taken Rebecca down in under 4 seconds. It all told the story for him. Sophie broke away from her grandparents and ran back to Ethan, threw her small arms around his waist. "Thank you," she whispered. Thank you for listening to your dog. Ethan hugged her back, felt tears sting his eyes for the first time in 3 years. Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help. She pulled back, looked up at him with those wide, trusting eyes. My dad would have liked you. He always said the best officers are the ones who trust their partners more than themselves. Your dad sounds like he was a good man. He was. Sophie smiled, a real smile, the first one Ethan had seen from her. Then she knelt beside Shadow, kissed the top of his head 3 times, and whispered something only the dog could hear. Shadow's tail wagged harder. Whatever she said, he understood. As the families prepared to leave for a secure area where they could wait out the storm together, Ethan's radio crackled. One more time. Yuko. Cole, dispatch. Need you back at the security office. We've got something you need to see. Ethan walked through Terminal B with Shadow at his side. The crowd had thinned, people settling in for a long night. But the energy felt different now. Word had spread. The security guy with the bung had stopped a kidnapping, saved 3 kids. People nodded at him as he passed. A few even said thank you. The security office sat tucked behind gate B7. 3 monitors, a desk covered in paperwork, 2 folding chairs. The supervisor, a woman named Martinez, pointed at the center screen. We pulled all the footage like you asked, she said, looking for patterns, connections, and we found something. The screen showed Rebecca Morgan, but not from tonight. This was older footage, timestamped from 6 months ago, different terminal, different airport, but the same woman, same blue coat, same calculated movements. She was here before, Martinez said. We cross-referenced with other airports. Denver, Phoenix, Las Vegas, Seattle, LAX. She shows up every few months, always around holidays when airports are crowded, always targeting kids who get separated from adults for just a few seconds. How many, Ethan asked. Martinez pulled up a spreadsheet. At least 12 incidents we can confirm, probably more. She's part of something organized. This isn't random. Do we know who she works for? Martinez shook her head. FBI is taking over the investigation, but they're going to need your statement. Everything you saw, everything Shadow alerted to. Ethan looked down at the dog. Shadow gazed back with those intelligent brown eyes. Eyes that had seen war and death and trauma, and still somehow found the capacity to care, to protect, to save. He saved them, Ethan said quietly. I just followed his lead. Martinez smiled. Best damn security team this airport's ever had. Ethan filed his report, gave a statement to the FBI, watched them take Rebecca Morgan into federal custody. She never spoke, never asked for a lawyer, never showed an ounce of remorse, just blank eyes and silence. By midnight, the storm started to ease. Wind speeds dropped. Snow thinned. Emergency crews began clearing roads. The airport would reopen by morning. Ethan walked Terminal B one more time. Shadow padded beside him, finally relaxed, tongue lolling, and a dog smile. They passed the spot where Sophie had given the signal. The spot where everything changed. Ethan's mind drifted to Lily, his daughter, 8 years old when she disappeared. She'd be 11 now, if she was still alive. If someone hadn't taken her the way Rebecca Morgan had taken these children. If the storm that night hadn't been the cover for something darker than a simple accident. For 3 years, Ethan had believed his daughter was dead, accepted it, buried it, moved on as much as a broken father could. But tonight changed something. Tonight proved that children could disappear and still be out there, still be alive, still be waiting for someone to find them. Shadow whined softly, pressed his nose against Ethan's hand. The dog always knew when the darkness started creeping back in, always pulled him back to the present. Ethan scratched behind Shadow's ears. Good boy, you did good tonight. The dog's tail wagged. His job was simple. Protect, alert, save. He didn't carry the weight of what-ifs and maybes. He lived in the now. Ethan's radio crackled. All units, roads reopening, relief crews arriving, Storm officially over. Good work tonight, everyone. But Ethan barely heard it, because on the security monitor behind Martinez's desk, a still frame from tonight's footage glowed in fluorescent light. Rebecca Morgan, 3 children, and something Ethan hadn't noticed before. A phone in Rebecca's purse, the screen visible for just a fraction of a second as her bag spilled open. A text message, partially visible. Just 3 words. Package delayed, storm problem. Package, not children, not kids, package. And below that, a phone number with a 703 area code, Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C. area. Ethan's blood ran cold. This wasn't just some random trafficking operation. This was organized. This had reach. This had resources. And somewhere in the chain of people who bought and sold children like cargo, someone was expecting 3 packages tonight. Someone who was now going to be very unhappy that those packages never arrived. Shadow growled, low and deep, a sound Ethan had only heard a handful of times, the sound the dog made when danger wasn't just close. It was coming. Ethan looked at his partner, at the dig who'd saved 3 lives tonight, at the only living thing he trusted completely in a world full of liars and predators. You feel it too, don't you, boy? This isn't over. Shadow's hackles rose, his eyes fixed on the terminal entrance, on the darkness beyond the glass, on whatever storm was still coming. The blizzard outside was done, but inside Ethan's chest, something else was building. A cold certainty, a hunter's instinct honed by years of tracking enemies through deserts and mountains. Rebecca Morgan wasn't the top of this food chain. She was barely the middle. And whoever ran this operation, whoever expected those 3 children to arrive tonight, they weren't going to just walk away because one security officer and one dog disrupted their business. They were coming. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. And when they did, Ethan and Shadow would be waiting. The interrogation room at Denver International Airport was barely a room at all. 8 by 10 feet, cinder block walls painted institutional beige. One metal table bolted to the floor. 2 chairs, a fluorescent light that buzzed like a trapped insect. No windows. One door with a lock that could only open from the outside. Rebecca Morgan sat in the far chair, hands cuffed in front of her. She hadn't spoken since they brought her in. Hadn't asked for a lawyer. Hadn't asked for water or a phone call or any of the things criminals usually demanded within the first 5 minutes of custody. She just sat there staring at the table's scratched surface with eyes that showed nothing. Ethan stood against the wall, arms crossed. Shadow sat beside him, perfectly still, except for his eyes, which never left Rebecca's face. The dog's breathing was measured, controlled, but his muscles stayed coiled tight, ready to spring if the threat made any sudden moves. The FBI agent, a man named Torres who'd been stranded on a connecting flight from Quantico, leaned against the opposite wall. He'd shown his credentials, made some calls on a satellite phone since cell towers were still down from the storm, explained that this was now a federal investigation, but Ethan's cooperation would be appreciated. "Talk to me about the phone," Torres said. His voice was calm, almost conversational. "The number you saw in the text message? You remember any other digits?" Ethan recited what he'd memorized from the security footage. 703 area code, Northern Virginia. First 3 digits after that were 555. The rest was blocked by Rebecca's thumb in the frame. Torres typed notes into a tablet. "We're running it. Cross-referencing with known trafficking networks. Could take a few hours." Rebecca's jaw tightened. Just slightly, almost imperceptible. But Ethan caught it. Shadow caught it too. The dog's ears tilted forward. "You know who's on the other end of that number?" Ethan said. It wasn't a question. Rebecca's eyes flicked up, met his for half a second, then dropped back down. Ethan pushed off the wall, walked slowly around the table. Shadow followed, staying between Ethan and the door. Standard patrol positioning. Never give the suspect an avenue of escape. 3 kids, Ethan said quietly. 3 families torn apart, and for what money? Rebecca's hands trembled. She pressed them flat against the table to hide it. How much do they pay you? Ethan continued. 1,000 per kid, 2,000. Is that what a child's life is worth in your world? You don't understand, Rebecca whispered. Her voice cracked. You can't understand. Try me. She shook her head. If I talk, I'm dead. If I don't talk, I'm dead. Either way, I'm dead. Torres stepped forward. We can protect you, witness protection, new identity, but you have to give us something, names, locations, how the operation works. Rebecca laughed, a sound without humor. Protect me from them, her voice rose. You have no idea who you're dealing with. No idea. Then tell us, Ethan said. He pulled out the other chair, sat down across from her. Shadow positioned himself at the corner of the table, equidistant from both humans. Ready. They have people everywhere, Rebecca said. Her words came faster now. Fear bleeding through. Police, FBI, TSA, airport security, judges, lawyers. You think this is the first time someone caught me? It's not. It's the 10th time. And every other time I walked, charges dropped, evidence lost, witnesses recanted. She leaned forward, her eyes locked onto Ethan's. I didn't walk because I'm smart. I walked because they made it happen, because they own the system, because they're untouchable. Nobody's untouchable, Torres said. He is, Rebecca breathed. Not senator anymore. CEO now, same power, more money, no oversight. Ethan's spine straightened. CEO of what? Rebecca opened her mouth to answer. The lights went out. Complete darkness. The fluorescent buzz died. The building's ambient hum vanished. Even the emergency lights failed. Total blackness dropped like a curtain. Shadow barked. Once. Sharp. Warning. Ethan's hand went to his belt. Flashlight. He clicked it on. The beam cut through the dark landing on Rebecca's face. She was standing now, chair knocked backward. Her eyes were wide with terror. They're here, she whispered. Oh God, they're here. Torres had his own flashlight out. His other hand moved to his hip where a service weapon should have been, but wasn't because he checked it at security before his flight. He keyed his radio. All units, this is FBI Agent Torres. Power's out in Security Wing B. Need backup and emergency lighting now. Static, Torres tried again. Dispatch, do you copy? Nothing. Shadow's growl filled the room. Low, continuous. The sound vibrated through the floor. Ethan moved to the door, tried the handle, locked from the outside. Of course it was. Standard security protocol. But now they were trapped. How many, Ethan asked Rebecca. Her voice shook. 2, maybe 3. They send a cleanup crew when things go wrong. Armed always. Ethan clicked off his flashlight, plunged them back into darkness. His eyes needed to adjust. Needed to see without depending on a light source that would give away his position. Stay quiet, he said to Rebecca. Get in the corner. Don't move. Don't breathe loud. He heard her shuffle across the floor, the scrape of her shoes, the rustle of her jacket as she pressed into the corner. Torres, Ethan whispered, you combat trained 6 months in Iraq, forward operating base. Never saw direct action. Then stay behind me. Shadow pressed against Ethan's leg. The dog knew this drill. They'd done it 100 times in training, 50 times in real combat. Room clearing in hostile territory. Threats unknown. Vision limited. Trust your partner. Trust your instincts. Trust your training. Ethan's breathing slowed. His heart rate dropped. The old, familiar calm settled over him like armor. This was muscle memory. This was what the Marine Corps and the SEALs had spent 8 years drilling into his DNA. You don't think in moments like this. You act. He pressed his ear to the door, listened. Footsteps in the corridor. Heavy boots, 2 sets. Moving with purpose but not rushing. Professional, military cadence. Shadow's growl intensified. His hackles rose so high Ethan could feel them brush against his hand. The footsteps stopped outside the door. A pause. Then metal scraping metal. Someone working the lock from the outside. Ethan backed up 3 steps, positioned himself to the left of the door's swing radius. Shadow moved right, flanking positions. When the door opened, they'd have targets silhouetted against whatever light existed in the hallway. Classic fatal funnel tactics. The lock clicked. The door swung inward. 2 shapes filled the doorway, both over 6 feet, both broad-shouldered. Tactical flashlights mounted on what looked like submachine guns. The beams swept the room. "Where is she?" one of them growled. Deep voice, East Coast accent. Ethan didn't answer, didn't move, waited. The first man stepped inside. His flashlight beam swept past Ethan, then jerked back. "Found him. Don't move," the man barked. "Hands where I can see them." Ethan raised his hand slowly, deliberately. His body language read compliance, submission, exactly what they expected from a security guard caught in a bad situation. The second man entered, moved toward the corner where Rebecca was hiding. His light found her. She screamed. "Shut up," the second man snapped. "You're coming with us." The first man kept his weapon trained on Ethan. His stance was good, not perfect, but good. Weight balanced, finger on the trigger, professional enough to be dangerous, not professional enough to recognize a threat when it was standing right in front of him. "You the security guy who grabbed her?" the first man asked. Ethan nodded. "Bad call. You just made a very powerful person very angry." "Who you'll find out." The man gestured with his weapon. "On the floor, face down, hands behind your head." Ethan hesitated. Let doubt show on his face. Let fear creep into his posture. Played the part of the overwhelmed security guard who was in way over his head. The first man took a step closer. I sat on the floor. That's when Shadow moved. 90 pounds of trained aggression launched from the darkness. Jaws open, teeth bared. The dog hit the first man's gun arm, clamped down with enough force to shatter bone. The weapon clattered to the floor. The man screamed. Ethan was already moving, 4 steps to close the distance. His hand shot out, grabbed the second man's wrist, twisted hard. The biomechanics of the human body don't change. Wrist locks work the same whether you're in a dojo or a war zone or a blacked-out airport interrogation room. The second man's fingers spasmed. His weapon fell. Ethan drove his knee into the man's solar plexus. All the air left his lungs in a whoosh. He doubled over. Ethan's elbow came down on the back of his neck. Not hard enough to kill, hard enough to shut down the central nervous system for a few seconds. The man crumpled. The first man was trying to shake Shadow off. The dog's jaws stayed locked. Ethan grabbed the man's collar, yanked him backward, swept his legs. The man hit the floor hard. His head bounced off concrete. Shadow released, backed off, positioned himself over the downed threat. 4 seconds, start to finish. Torres stood, frozen flashlight wavering in his hand. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. Ethan picked up both weapons, cleared the chambers, removed the magazines, slid them across the floor into the far corner. Then he zip-tied both men's hands behind their backs with the plastic cuffs from his belt. The first man groaned. Blood ran from his arm where Shadow had bitten through his jacket. Not arterial. He'd live. "Who sent you?" Ethan asked. The man spat blood. "Go to hell." Wrong answer. Ethan pressed his knee into the man's spine. Applied pressure. Not enough to cause permanent damage. Enough to send lightning bolts of pain through every nerve. "Who sent you?" The second man coughed. Tried to sit up. Shadow growled, putting his muzzle inches from the man's face. The message was clear. "Don't move." "His name's Marcus," Rebecca said from the corner. Her voice shook. "The other one's Cole. They work for him, for who Torres demanded." Rebecca's face was pale in the flashlight beam. "For Victor Hale." The name hit Ethan like a physical blow. His knee lifted off Marcus's back. His hands went numb. Victor Hale. Commander Hale. The man who'd led SEAL Team 3-3 deployments in Afghanistan. The man who'd personally recommended Ethan for advancement. the man who'd carried a wounded Ethan 3 miles through Taliban territory after an IED shredded their convoy. The man Ethan would have died for without hesitation. "You're lying," Ethan said. His voice came out hollow. Rebecca shook her head. "Hale Defense Solutions, private military contractor, biggest in the western states. He runs the whole operation. Uses his government connections to move product, uses his military resources to enforce compliance." Ethan's mind reeled. Hale retired from the Navy in 2018, went private sector, started HDS with capital from unnamed investors, built it into $1 billion enterprise in 6 years. Everyone said he was a patriot turned businessman, a warrior who'd found a new way to serve his country. "How long," Ethan asked Rebecca, "how long has he been trafficking children since the beginning?" "The company's just a front. The real money comes from the network." Torres stepped forward. "Can you prove this?" Rebecca laughed again. "That same empty sound. Prove it. Half the evidence is in a server farm in Virginia. The other half is in Hale's head. He's too smart to leave trails." Marcus spoke from the floor. His voice was thick with pain. "You're dead, Cole, all of you. When Hale finds out you touched us, you're dead." Ethan crouched beside him, looked him in the eyes. "Commander Hale doesn't know who I am. I'm just airport security to him." Marcus smiled through bloody teeth. "He knows exactly who you are. Why do you think we came for the woman? Why do you think he sent us tonight?" Ethan's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" "You think it's a coincidence," Marcus coughed. "You think it's random chance that Rebecca Morgan got caught by Ethan Cole tonight, Christmas Eve, 3 years to the day after your family died." The room tilted. Ethan grabbed the table to steady himself. Shadow whined, sensing his distress. "He's been watching you for 3 years," Marcus continued, "waiting for the right moment. Tonight was supposed to be your breaking point, your redemption arc. You saved 3 kids, feel like a hero, go home feeling like you finally did something right for once in your miserable life." "Stop talking," Rebecca hissed. But Marcus kept going. "The accident that killed your wife Hale's people were there. They found your daughter, alive, wandering in the snow, and he's been holding her ever since, waiting for you to become useful." Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what he was hearing. Lily, his 8-year-old daughter, the girl he'd spent 3 years mourning, the empty casket he'd buried, the grief that had nearly killed him. "Where is she?" Ethan's voice cracked. "Where's my daughter?" Marcus smiled wider. "You want to see her again? Then you let Rebecca go. You walk away from this whole thing. You forget everything you saw tonight." The door opened. Lights spilled into the room from the hallway. Emergency lighting had come back online. And standing in the doorway, backlit like a figure from a dream, was Commander Victor Hale. He was 53 years old, 6'4", silver hair cut military short, broad shoulders that still carried the build of an active duty operator. He wore an expensive charcoal suit, polished shoes, a watch that cost more than Ethan made in 6 months. But his face was the same face that had looked down at Ethan when he was 23 years old and bleeding out in the Afghan desert. The same face that had said, "Hold on, son, I've got you, stay with me." The same face Ethan had trusted more than his own father. "Hello," Ethan Hale said. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "It's been a long time." Ethan stood slowly. Shadow moved between them, body tense. "Sir," Ethan said. The word came automatically. 8 years of conditioning. You address a superior officer with respect even when the world is ending around you. Hale smiled. "Not sir anymore. Just a civilian businessman these days." He stepped into the room. Torres moved to block him, but Hale's hand came up. On his wrist was a federal contractor badge. Homeland Security clearance. Level 5. "I'm afraid this is a matter of national security," Hale said to Torres. "I'm going to need you to step outside." "Like hell," Torres said. Hale pulled out his phone, tapped the screen twice, handed it to Torres. Torres read whatever was on the display. His face went white. He looked at Ethan. then at Hale, then back at Ethan. "I'm sorry," Torres said quietly. He walked out. The door closed behind him. Ethan and Hale stood 10 feet apart. Marcus and Cole were still on the floor. Rebecca was still in the corner. Shadow was still standing guard. But the energy in the room had shifted. This wasn't a confrontation between a security officer and criminals anymore. This was something else entirely. "You look good," Hale said. "Colorado suits you. Better than that apartment in Virginia Beach. Better than the bottle you were drowning in after Sarah's funeral." Ethan's fist clenched. "You've been watching me." "Of course I have." Hale walked around the table. "Casual, comfortable. You were one of my best men. You think I just forget about you?" "Marcus said you took my daughter." Hale stopped, turned, looked at Marcus with something approaching disappointment. "I told you to secure the woman, not run your mouth." He said, "Lily's alive." Hale was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "She is." Ethan's knees almost gave out. Where Hale pulled out a tablet from his jacket, tapped the screen, turned it around. On the display was a photograph. A girl, 11 years old, brown hair, blue eyes, a face that looked so much like Sarah's it hurt to see. Lily, alive, healthy, wearing clothes that looked expensive, standing in what looked like a nice house. Big windows, mountain views. "She goes by Emma now," Hale said. "Lives with a very wealthy family in Seattle. Good schools, private tutors, everything a child could want." Ethan reached for the tablet. Hale pulled it back. "You took her," Ethan said. His voice shook with rage. "You killed my wife and you took my daughter." "I saved your daughter," Hale corrected. "Your wife's death was unfortunate. A genuine accident. Black ice, bad weather, wrong place, wrong time. But when my people arrived to check the scene before first responders got there, they found Lily, alive, hypothermic but alive, wandering in the snow." He slipped the tablet back into his jacket. "I had a choice. Leave her there to freeze to death, or take her. Give her to a family who wanted a child, who could provide for her, who would never hurt her." "You had no right," Ethan growled. "I had every right." Hale's voice hardened. "You were a wreck, drinking yourself to death, barely functioning. You think you could have raised a child in that condition? You think you could have given her what she needed? She was my daughter. She still is, and she can be again." Hale moved closer. Shadow's growl intensified, but Hale ignored the dog. "All you have to do is walk away, let Rebecca go, forget this ever happened, and I'll tell you exactly where Lily is, give you her address, her new name, everything you need to find her." Ethan looked at Rebecca, at the woman who tried to steal 3 other children tonight, who was part of a network that had stolen his daughter 3 years ago. "What about them?" Ethan said. "Sophie, Liam, Noah. What happens to the next 3 kids she takes?" "That's not your concern." "The hell it's not." Hale sighed. "Always the hero, even when it costs you everything." He checked his watch. "You have 2 hours to decide. At 6 a.m. there's a private jet waiting at the East Hangar. Rebecca needs to be on it. If she's not, I make one phone call. Lily disappears. You'll never find her. Never even know what name she's using. You're bluffing." "Am I?" Hale pulled out his phone again, showed Ethan another photo. Lily at a school, different angle, recent. Time stamped 2 days ago. She's real. She's alive. And she's one phone call away from vanishing forever. He pocketed the phone. 2 hours, Ethan. Choose wisely. Your daughter's life depends on it." Hale walked to the door. Knocked twice, it opened from the outside. He paused in the threshold. "For what it's worth, I've always respected you. You were a good soldier, one of the best I ever commanded. But you have a weakness. You care too much. You can't see the bigger picture. You can't make the hard calls." He glanced at Shadow. "Even your dog knows when to let go of a target. Maybe you should learn from him." Hale left. The door closed, locked. Ethan stood in the center of the room. His mind was white noise. Static, overloaded circuits trying to process information that didn't make sense. Lily was alive. His daughter, his little girl, the child he'd mourned for 3 years. She was alive. And she was being held by the man he'd once trusted more than anyone in the world. Marcus laughed from the floor. Told you, you're dead no matter what you choose. Save the brats and lose your kid. Save your kid and live with the guilt. Either way, Hale wins. Ethan walked over to him, grabbed him by the collar, lifted him half off the ground. Where is she? What's the address? Marcus grinned through bloody teeth. Only Hale knows, and he's not telling unless Rebecca walks. Shadow barked, sharp, urgent. The dog paced between Ethan and the door. His body language screamed wrong danger trap. Rebecca spoke from her corner. He's lying to you, Ethan turned. What? Your daughter. Hale's lying. She's not in Seattle with some nice family. She's in the system. How do you know? Rebecca stood up, walked into the light. Her face showed exhaustion and guilt and something that might have been remorse. 3 years ago, I picked up a girl in Colorado, 8 years old, brown hair, blue eyes. Name was Lily Cole. Hale's people told me to deliver her to a transition facility in Nevada for processing. After that, I don't know where she went. Hale keeps final placement secret from us. Only he knows where high-value targets end up. Why? Ethan's voice was barely a whisper. Because she's leverage, the most valuable kind. Rebecca stepped closer. He's been waiting for you to be useful. And tonight you finally are. What do you mean you stopped me? You exposed part of the network. You have evidence. Testimony. You're a threat. Hale needs you to either work for him or die. The daughter angle is how he controls you. Ethan looked at Marcus. Is she telling the truth? Marcus said nothing, but his eyes said everything. Where is Lily now? Ethan demanded. Where's she being held? Rebecca shook her head. I don't know. They never tell us endpoints anymore. Too many leaks. But Hale knows, and he's the only one who does. Ethan turned away, pressed his palms against the wall, tried to breathe, tried to think, tried to figure out how to save his daughter and stop a monster who wore the face of a hero. Shadow pressed against his leg. The dog's presence was warm, solid, real. The only thing in the room that made sense. 2 hours. Hale had given him 2 hours. 120 minutes to make an impossible choice. Save 3 children he'd just met, or save the daughter he'd spent 3 years mourning. Be the hero everyone thought he was, or be the father he'd failed to be 3 years ago. The clock on the wall ticked forward. Time moved whether he was ready or not, and somewhere in the dark, Victor Hale was smiling. Ethan stood alone in the interrogation room. Marcus and Cole were still zip-tied on the floor. Rebecca sat in the corner, eyes closed, waiting for whatever came next. Shadow paced between them, restless, sensing the storm building inside his partner. The clock on the wall read 4:17 a.m., 1 hour and 43 minutes until Hale's deadline. 103 minutes to make a choice that would define the rest of his life. Ethan closed his eyes, saw Sarah's face, heard her voice from a memory 6 years old. They were sitting on the back porch of their little house in Virginia Beach. Lily was 2 years old, sleeping inside. Sarah was pregnant with their second child, the baby they'd lose to miscarriage 3 months later. If something ever happens to me, Sarah had said, you take care of our girl. You put her first. Always. Ethan had laughed. Nothing's going to happen to you. Sarah had touched his face. Promise me, if it comes down to saving the world or saving her, you choose her. Every time. He'd promised, but Sarah had never accounted for a scenario like this. She'd never imagined that saving Lily might mean abandoning 3 other children to the same fate. That being a father might mean betraying everything he'd sworn to protect when he put on a uniform. Shadow stopped pacing, sat directly in front of Ethan, looked up at him with those intelligent brown eyes. The dog's head tilted slightly, a question without words. What do we do? Ethan crouched down, scratched behind Shadow's ears. The dog leaned into his hand, offering comfort the only way he knew how. Your dad taught me the signal before he died, Sophie had said tonight. He said heroes never leave kids behind. Ethan stood, walked to the door, pounded on it 3 times, hard enough to make the metal ring. The lock clicked. The door opened. A security officer Ethan didn't recognize stood in the hallway. Behind him, Agent Torres waited with his arms crossed. I need to make a phone call, Ethan said. 10 minutes later, he sat in a different room with a satellite phone pressed to his ear. Torres sat across from him, tablet open, recording everything. Shadow lay at Ethan's feet, finally calm. The phone rang 4 times. A voice answered. FBI Denver Field Office, Agent Chen speaking. This is Ethan Cole. I'm calling from Denver International Airport. I have information about a federal trafficking operation. I need immediate extraction for 3 witnesses and tactical support for a target neutralization. Chen's voice sharpened. Say that again. Ethan repeated it. Added details. Names, locations. The hangar. Hale Defense Solutions. Commander Victor Hale. Rebecca Morgan. Marcus and Cole, last names unknown. Multiple children. 4 currently at the airport. More en route to an unknown location. Chen was quiet for a long moment. You realize what you're saying? You're accusing Victor Hale. The Victor Hale, decorated Navy SEAL, CEO of one of the largest defense contractors in the country, personal friend of senators and congressmen. I'm not accusing, Ethan said. I'm reporting facts. He's running a trafficking network, using his company as cover, using his government connections to move children across state lines. Do you have proof? I have a witness willing to testify. I have 2 of his employees in custody, and I have approximately 90 minutes before he gets on a plane and disappears. Chen exhaled. Where are you now, Airport Security Wing? Terminal B, stay there. Don't do anything stupid. We're sending a team. How long? Roads are still bad from the storm? 2 hours, maybe 3. I don't have 3 hours. Cole, if you're thinking about going after Hale yourself, don't. Let us handle this. Ethan looked at Shadow. The dog's tail thumped once against the floor. With me or not, Shadow stood, walked to the door, looked back. Ready. I'll wait for your team, Ethan said into the phone. He hung up. Torres stared at him. You're not going to wait, are you? Ethan stood, checked his watch. 4:40 a.m. 80 minutes until Hale's jet took off, until his daughter disappeared forever, until 3 more children became ghosts in a system designed to make them vanish. No, Ethan said, I'm not. He walked to the evidence locker, pulled out the 2 submachine guns Marcus and Cole had been carrying, checked the chambers, loaded. He grabbed extra magazines, a tactical vest, a radio, a pair of night vision goggles that probably hadn't been used since the airport's last active shooter drill. Torres followed him. This is insane. You're one guy. Hale will have at least a dozen men at that hangar. Trained operators, former military. Ethan strapped on the vest, clipped the radio to his shoulder. I've been one guy against worse odds, in Afghanistan, with a full SEAL team backing you up. Ethan looked at Shadow. I've got backup. The dog's tail wagged. Torres ran a hand through his hair. If you die out there, I'm the one who has to explain it to the FBI. Then don't let me die. Ethan handed him a radio. Stay here, monitor this frequency, track my GPS location. The moment I step into that hangar you call Chen, tell them exactly where I am. Get them moving. What about the kids here, Sophie and the others? Keep them safe. Don't let anyone near them until the FBI arrives. And Rebecca, Ethan glanced at the interrogation room where she was being held. She's your star witness. Lose her and this whole thing falls apart. Torres nodded. Be careful out there. Ethan headed for the exit. Shadow followed. They moved through the dark terminal like ghosts. Emergency lighting cast long shadows. Stranded travelers slept in clusters using coats as blankets, bags as pillows. A few were awake, staring at phones with no service, waiting for dawn. The east exit led to a service corridor. Ethan pushed through the door. Cold air hit him like a fist. The storm had passed, but the temperature had dropped even further. -20 degrees. Wind chill made it feel like -40. Snow covered everything, 3 feet deep in places. The tarmac was a flat white plain stretching toward distant hangars that looked like dark shapes against the pre-dawn sky. No lights, no movement, just cold and silence, and the crunch of snow under boots. Shadow stayed close. The dog's breath formed clouds in the frozen air. His paws left prints that filled with snow almost immediately. Ethan pulled up the hood of his jacket, checked the GPS on his stolen radio. The east hangar was 800 meters away. Half a mile through open ground with no cover, they moved. Ethan's body remembered this. Night movements through hostile territory, Afghanistan 2016, Helmand Province. His team had walked 12 miles through Taliban-controlled mountains to hit a weapons cache. They'd done it in darkness, in silence, trusting each other, trusting their training. Shadow moved like he'd done this 1,000 times. Maybe he had. 2 deployments with the Marines before Ethan found him. The dog knew how to low crawl, how to freeze when threats appeared, how to become invisible. They covered the first 400 meters in 15 minutes. Slow, careful. The hangar grew larger ahead. Lights glowed inside, spilling through gaps in the walls. Shadows moved behind frosted windows. Voices carried on the wind too distant to make out words. Ethan dropped to his stomach. Shadow did the same. They crawled the last 200 meters. Snow soaked through Ethan's clothes. His fingers went numb. His face burned with cold. But pain was just information. Discomfort was just noise. He pushed it aside. They reached the hangar's south wall. Ethan pressed his ear against the metal, heard an engine idling, a jet warming up, voices inside, at least 6 distinct speakers, maybe more. He moved along the wall, found a service door, tried the handle, locked. Of course it was, but the lock was old, basic, not designed to keep out someone who knew what they were doing. Ethan pulled out a multi-tool, selected the tension wrench and pick. His fingers were too cold to feel what he was doing. He worked by muscle memory. 30 seconds later, the lock clicked. He eased the door open. 1 inch, 2 inches, peered inside. The hangar was massive. High ceilings, concrete floor. A private jet sat in the center stairs, deployed engines running, lights blazed from overhead fixtures. And around the jet, men moved. Ethan counted 8, all armed, all wearing tactical gear. Former military by the way they carried themselves. And in the corner, barely visible behind a stack of cargo crates, metal cages, 6 of them, small, each one holding a child. These weren't from tonight, different faces, different ages. Part of a larger shipment Hale had been holding, waiting for the storm to pass. Ethan's blood ran cold. Children younger than Lily, younger than Sophie, sitting in cages like animals, waiting to be loaded onto a plane and shipped to God knows where. Shadow growled, so quiet only Ethan could hear it. The dog saw them too, saw the cages, understood on some primal level what was happening. Ethan scanned for Hale, didn't see him. The jet's door was closed. He was probably inside, waiting, confident that Ethan would make the smart choice, the selfish choice, that love for his daughter would override everything else. Hale was wrong. Ethan keyed his radio. Torres, you copy static, then Torres' voice. I copy. 8 hostiles, 6 children in cages. Target is likely inside the aircraft. I'm going in. Call Chen now. Give them my exact coordinates. Already on it. They're staging 2 miles out. Waiting for confirmation you're engaged. Good. When the shooting starts, tell them to move. Cole, don't be a hero. Ethan clicked off the radio, looked at Shadow. The dog's eyes gleamed in the dim light. Ready. They slipped inside. The noise from the jet engines covered their footsteps. Ethan moved along the wall using cargo crates and equipment as cover. Shadow followed Belly, low to the ground, silent as smoke. They reached the cages. The children looked up. Ethan pressed a finger to his lips. Universal sign for quiet. The kids didn't make a sound. Their eyes were hollow, empty, like they'd already learned that screaming didn't help. Ethan examined the cages, padlocks, simple ones. He could pick them, but not while 8 armed men stood 30 feet away. He needed a distraction. Shadow nudged his hand. The dog looked toward the far corner of the hangar where a fuse box was mounted on the wall. Emergency shutdown, cut the power, and the whole building would go dark. Smart dog. Ethan pointed. Shadow moved. The dog crossed the open floor in seconds, staying in the shadows invisible to the men focused on the jet. He reached the fuse box, sat, waited. Ethan raised his hand, counted down on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. Shadow reared up, grabbed the main breaker handle in his teeth, pulled. The lights died. The hangar plunged into darkness. Men shouted. Flashlights clicked on. Beams swept the space randomly. Ethan moved. He had the night vision goggles on. The world turned green and bright. He saw everything. The men scrambling, the jet's door opening, Hale stepping out, phone in hand, barking orders. Ethan reached the cages, pulled out his multi-tool, picked the first lock in 10 seconds, the second in 8, the third in 12. The children stumbled. Out. He pointed toward the service door. Go. Run. Don't stop. They ran. Flashlight beams found them. Someone shouted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets sparked off concrete. The children screamed. Ethan returned fire. 3 round bursts. Center mass. 2 men went down. The others scattered for cover. Shadow attacked. The dog came out of the darkness like a demon, hit one of the gunmen from behind, knocked him down. The man's weapon skittered across the floor. Shadow's jaws found his arm, held him, neutralized him. Ethan advanced, fired twice more, another man down. The remaining 5 took defensive positions behind the jet, started laying down suppressive fire. Bullets tore through cargo crates, ricocheted off walls. The noise was deafening. Ethan dove behind a fuel drum, checked his magazine. Half empty. He had 2 spares, 60 rounds total, against 5 trained operators and Victor Hale. Not great odds, but he'd faced worse. Shadow retreated to his position. The dog was bleeding from a graze on his shoulder. Not serious, but enough to slow him down. Ethan's chest tightened. If Shadow died because of this, if his partner paid the price for his choice, he'd never forgive himself. The gunfire stopped. Silence fell. Just the whine of the jet engines and heavy breathing and the pound of blood in Ethan's ears. Ethan Hale's voice echoed through the hangar. You're making a mistake. Ethan didn't answer, didn't give away his position. Those children mean nothing to you, Hale continued. But Lily is your blood, your daughter. How can you choose strangers over her? Ethan moved. Changed positions, flanked right. Shadow mirrored him on the left. They'd done this drill 100 times. Pincer movement, classic room-clearing tactics. You taught me something, Ethan called out. His voice bounced off the walls, making it hard to pinpoint. You taught me that a leader protects all his people, not just the ones he cares about. All of them. Noble sentiment. But you're not a leader anymore. You're just a broken security guard playing hero. Ethan reached a new firing position. Could see 3 of Hale's men crouched behind the jet's landing gear. Saw Hale himself standing near the stairs, phone still in his hand. Where's my daughter? Ethan demanded. Hale smiled. That's the question, isn't it? Let me make you an offer. You put down your weapon, you walk out, and I tell you exactly where she is. Right now, give you her address, her new name, everything. And these kids, they're already lost. But Lily can still be saved. Ethan's finger tightened on the trigger. He had a clear shot. Center mass. Hale wasn't wearing body armor. 1 bullet and this ended. But if Hale died, Lily's location died with him. Rebecca didn't know. Marcus and Cole didn't know. Only Hale knew. And dead men don't talk. Sarah's voice echoed in his memory. Put her first, always. But then he heard Sophie's small voice. My dad said heroes never leave kids behind. 2 promises. Two paths, only one choice. Shadow whined beside him, sensing the impossible weight. Ethan, you have 5 seconds to decide. Hale raised his phone. I press one button and Lily gets moved again. You'll never find her. 4 seconds. Ethan thought about the 6 children who'd just run from this place, about Sophie and Liam and Noah safe with their families, about all the children who might never be taken if this network fell tonight. 3 seconds. He thought about Lily, about finding her someday, about rebuilding what was broken. 2 seconds. One choice. All of them. 1 second. Ethan lowered his weapon, stood up, hands raised. I choose all of them, he said quietly. Smart choice, Hale said. He lowered his phone. That's when the hangar doors exploded inward. Metal shrieked, snow blasted through the opening, and FBI tactical teams poured in like a black wave. 20 agents, full armor, rifles raised, voices shouting commands. Federal agents, drop your weapons, hands where we can see them. Hale's men tried to fight, tried to run, didn't matter. They were surrounded, outnumbered, outgunned. Within 30 seconds, all 5 were on the ground, hands cuffed behind their backs. Hale stood frozen. His face showed something Ethan had never seen before. Fear. Torres appeared in the doorway, radio in his hand. I called them the moment you walked into that hangar, he shouted to Ethan. Tracked your GPS. They were staged 2 miles out, waiting for my signal. When I heard gunfire, I gave the green light. Ethan lowered his hands, looked at Hale. Your people aren't as loyal as you thought. Rebecca's been talking. Names, dates, locations, bank accounts, everything. 2 agents grabbed Hale, spun him around, cuffed him, read him his rights in voices that cut through the chaos like knives. Where is she? Ethan walked forward. Where's Lily? Hale said nothing, just stared straight ahead. Silent, the lead FBI agent, a woman named Reeves, stepped forward. We have Rebecca Morgan's full testimony. She gave us locations where children have been held in the last 6 months. We're hitting all of them simultaneously. If your daughter's in the system, we'll find her. How long? Ethan's voice cracked. 24 hours, maybe less. I want to be there. When you find her. Reeves nodded. We'll make it happen. They led Hale toward an armored transport. He passed Ethan on the way out, stopped, looked at him. For a moment, the mask slipped. The careful CEO facade cracked, and underneath was something old and bitter and broken. You should have taken the deal, Hale said quietly. You should have saved your own. I did, Ethan replied. All of them. Hale smiled, his empty expression. You were always too good for this world, Cole. That's why you'll never win. Good men finish last. Good men lose everything. Shadow stepped between them. The dog's hackles rose. A low, warning rumble built in his chest. Hale looked down at the German shepherd, the dog that had helped bring down his entire operation. Even your dog knows the truth, Hale said. Loyalty is just another word for weakness. The agents pulled him away, loaded him into the transport. The door slammed shut, and Victor Hale, decorated Navy SEAL, successful CEO, untouchable businessman, disappeared into federal custody. Ethan stood in the hangar as dawn broke outside. The children from the cages were being loaded into ambulances, wrapped in blankets, given water and food, checked by paramedics. Their eyes still showed trauma, still showed the weight of whatever they'd endured, but they were alive. They were free. Shadow limped over. The graze on his shoulder had stopped bleeding, but the D moved stiffly. Ethan knelt, examined the wound. Not deep, would heal clean. Good boy, Ethan whispered. You did so good. Shadow's tail wagged, his tongue lolled in a tired smile. Just another day's work. Torres approached. That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen anyone do. Did it work? Torres laughed. Yeah, it worked. You just took down a billion-dollar trafficking network and arrested one of the most powerful men in the defense industry. The FBI is calling it the biggest bust in 20 years. And the kids all safe. Sophie, Liam, and Noah are with their families. The 6 from the hangar are being processed through child services, and Rebecca's cooperating with everything. She's giving up the entire network, every player, every location. Ethan stood. What about Lily? We're working on it. Rebecca says Hale kept detailed records, digital files hidden in encrypted servers. We're bringing in specialists to crack them. If there's any information about your daughter in there, we'll find it. How long? Could be hours, could be days. Ethan closed his eyes, felt exhaustion wash over him like a wave. He'd been awake for 26 hours, had been shot at, had faced down the man who had taken everything from him, had chosen duty over desire strangers, over blood the many, over the one. Sarah would have been proud. 18 hours later, Ethan sat in a conference room at FBI headquarters in Denver. Shadow lay beside his chair, bandaged and medicated, but alert. Torres sat across the table. Agent Reeves stood at the head tablet in hand. We found her, Reeves said. Ethan's heart stopped. Where? Seattle. Just like Hale said, she's been living with a couple named the Harrisons. Thomas Harrison is a tech CEO. Wife's name is Jennifer. They have no children of their own. Applied for adoption 3 years ago, but were rejected due to age and background issues. They bought her, Ethan said. His voice was flat. Essentially, yes. Hale's records show a payment of $200,000. They were told she was an orphan, that her parents died in a car accident, that she needed a good home. Do they know the truth now? We told them this morning. Mrs. Harrison broke down. Mr. Harrison lawyered up. They claim they had no idea, thought everything was legitimate. Do you believe them? Reeves hesitated. Honestly, yes. They're victims too, in a way. They wanted a child. Hale exploited that. But regardless of intent, they were harboring a kidnapping victim. There will be legal consequences. What about Lily? Does she know? We told her. Carefully. With child psychologists present, Reeves pulled up a photo on her tablet, showed it to Ethan. It was Lily, older, hair longer, but unmistakably his daughter. She was sitting in a room with soft lighting and comfortable furniture. A woman sat beside her, professional, kind-looking. A therapist, probably. How did she react? Ethan asked. She didn't remember you at first. She was 8 when she was taken. Now she's 11. 3 years is a long time for a child. But when we showed her photos of you and her mother, something clicked. She started crying, asked if you were really alive. What did you tell her? That you've been looking for her every day since she disappeared? That you never stopped? That you're here now? Can I see her? Reeves nodded. There's a car waiting. We can be in Seattle in 3 hours. The flight was the longest 3 hours of Ethan's life. He sat in the back of an FBI plane, Shadow beside him, staring out the window at clouds that looked like cotton and mountains that looked like teeth. Torres sat across from him, pretending to read a file, but mostly just watching Ethan come apart. What if she doesn't remember me? Ethan asked. What if 3 years with them erase 3 years with us, then you start over? You remind her, you show her who you are. What if she's happy there? What if she wants to stay? Torres leaned forward. Then you deal with it, but you don't make that decision for her. You give her the choice. You let her know she has a father who loves her, who never gave up, and then you let her decide. The plane landed at Boeing Field. An FBI SUV drove them to a safe house in the suburbs, a normal-looking house on a normal-looking street. Nothing about it suggested that inside a father was about to meet the daughter he'd thought was dead. Shadow whined as they walked up the driveway. The dog could sense Ethan's anxiety, could feel his partner's heart racing. Reeves opened the door, led them inside. The house smelled like coffee and vanilla. Soft music played from somewhere. A woman in her 50s, the therapist from the photo, stood in the hallway. She's in the living room, the therapist said. She's nervous, scared, but she wants to see you. Ethan walked forward. Shadow followed. They turned the corner into the living room, and there she was. Lily sat on a couch, hands folded in her lap. She wore jeans and a sweater. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked healthy, well-fed, cared for, but her eyes showed confusion and fear, and something that looked like hope. Ethan stopped in the doorway, couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't process that this was real, that his daughter was sitting 10 feet away after 3 years of absence. Lily's eyes found his, studied his face, searched her memory for recognition. Shadow made the decision for both of them. The dog walked across the room, sat in front of Lily, looked up at her with those gentle brown eyes, and placed his head in her lap. Lily's hand moved automatically, scratched behind Shadow's ears. The gesture was so familiar, so natural, like she'd done it 1,000 times before. Then her eyes widened. Daddy Ethan's voice broke, "Yeah, baby, it's me." Lily stood, took one step, two steps, then ran, threw herself into Ethan's arms, sobbed into his chest. 3 years of confusion and loss and trauma poured out in wrenching cries that shook her whole body. Ethan held her, felt his own tears fall, felt the weight of grief and guilt and desperate hope finally a release. She was real. She was alive. She was here. "I'm sorry," Lily cried. "I'm sorry I got lost. I'm sorry I couldn't find you." "No, baby. No." Ethan pulled back, looked at her face, wiped her tears. "You didn't get lost. You were taken, and I should have found you sooner. I should have never stopped looking. They said you were dead. They said you and Mommy died in the accident. Mommy did, but I didn't. And I've been looking for you every single day." Shadow pressed against both of them. The dog's tail wagged. His work was finally complete. The mission he'd started 3 years ago when he became Ethan's partner was finished. The broken family was whole again. They sat on the couch, Lily between Ethan and Shadow. The therapist brought water and tissues and gave them space. Hours passed. They talked. Lily told him about the Harrisons, about the schools she'd attended, about the friends she'd made, about the life she'd built in 3 years. "It wasn't all bad," she said quietly. "They were nice to me. They gave me things. But it always felt wrong, like I was pretending to be someone else. You were," Ethan said. "You were Emma Harrison, but you're Lily Cole, and you always have been. What happens now?" Ethan looked at Reeves, who stood in the doorway. The FBI agent nodded. "Now you come home," Ethan said. "If you want to. No pressure, no obligations, just choice." Lily looked at Shadow. The dog looked back. Some silent communication passed between them. "I want to come home," Lily whispered. 6 months later, Ethan stood in the backyard of a small house in Boulder, Colorado. It wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. A yard barely big enough for a dog to run. But it was theirs. Lily sat on the back porch doing homework. She was enrolled in school now, seeing a therapist twice a week, making friends slowly, learning to be a kid again instead of a commodity. Shadow lay beside her. The dog's shoulder had healed clean. His coat was glossy. His eyes were bright. He'd gained 10 pounds of healthy weight and lost most of the trauma shadows that used to haunt him. Ethan grilled at burgers, normal suburban dad things. He'd quit his security job. The FBI had offered him a consulting position helping identify trafficking patterns at airports. Good pay, flexible hours, a chance to use his skills for something that mattered. His phone buzzed, a text from Torres. "Thought you'd want to know. Hale got life without parole, 47 counts. Trafficking, conspiracy, murder for hire. He's done." Another text. "Rebecca got immunity for her testimony. She's in witness protection. Says she's sorry, for whatever that's worth." A third text. "Sophie's doing great. Her grandparents send their regards. Say their granddaughter still talks about the dog who saved her." Ethan pocketed the phone, looked at his daughter, at his dog, at the life they were rebuilding piece by piece. Lily looked up, caught him watching, smiled. A real smile. The first genuinely happy expression he'd seen on her face since she came home. "Dad," she called, "Shadow wants to show you something." The dog stood, walked to the center of the yard, sat, raised his right paw, 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. The signal, the same signal Sophie had used. The same signal that started everything. Ethan walked over, knelt beside Shadow. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Lily joined them, put her hand on Shadow's head. 3 gentle taps. "He taught me," she said, "after I came home. Said I should always know how to ask for help, even when words don't work." Smart dog, the smartest. Lily hugged Shadow. The dog's tail wagged. His tongue lolled in contentment. Ethan sat in the grass. Lily sat beside him. Shadow lay across both their laps. Too big to be a lap dog, but doing it anyway. They watched the sun set over the mountains. Watched the sky turn orange and pink and purple. Watched darkness fall soft and gentle instead of violent and cold. Somewhere in Washington, Victor Hale sat in a cell. Somewhere in witness protection, Rebecca Morgan tried to build a new life. Somewhere across the country, 9 children who'd been rescued that night were learning to heal. And here in Colorado, a broken father and his lost daughter and their faithful dog sat together in the fading light. Not whole yet, not healed completely, but together. Shadow's tail thumped against the ground, a steady rhythm, a heartbeat, a reminder that some loyalties run deeper than trauma, that some bonds survive even the darkest storms. Ethan looked at Lily. She looked back. And for the first time in 3 years, he saw Sarah in her eyes. Not grief, not loss, just love. "We made it," he whispered. Lily leaned against his shoulder. "We made it." Shadow yawned, closed his eyes, slept the sleep of a Teague who'd done his job, who'd protected his pack, who'd brought his family home. The night was quiet. The stars came out. And in a small house in Boulder, 3 souls who'd survived the unthinkable finally found peace.